Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys for another weekend recap. We had big elimination matches in both the LEC, LCS, and LCK, really. High stakes, some of these only best of ones, and we're both advocates for anything but best of ones, but I will say I was enjoying what the LEC was doing. It felt like an interesting tournament, how things, every match was so important. And case in point, unfortunately, the Toonies sang their final song in the LEC. And I know the fashion that they're eliminated feels a little bad. A slumping, bad-looking Fnatic losing and still qualifying. Tiebreakers of strength of schedule, yada, yada, yada. But the Rats did have their opportunity. And unfortunately, their best, most consistent player throughout this tournament, Nemesis, has a Yone game to forget.
And this one is the stinker of stinkers for so many reasons. But yes, unfortunately, the Los Ratones run comes to an end here in the LEC with them having failed controlling their own destiny. And that is the most important thing to take away from it, is that yes, you had more or less your own destiny, your own control in your hands if you're able to take care of the game against Vitality. If Nemesis gives you an average performance, I think you're still in that game and it's up for grabs. But with what we did get in that one, it absolutely did crash and burn and collapse in on itself for the Ratones in that game. And then everything doesn't fall into place and you get no tiebreaker game in the LEC, which I will add in. I was also enjoying the best of one format despite knowing the flaws and very much the real flaws of that format and what you have to go against with the rest of the world and the comparisons. But knowing that, okay, you're rolling through these ones, you probably are okay with setting up where you will have these tiebreaker matches. You can roll best of one right into that. That's how it goes. It is a one and done. Get it done. No tiebreaker. Oh, that ridiculousness from the LEC in that regard as far as the organization. And I think there can be real vocal frustration for the Los Ratones fan base, which is a large and very vocal one that can come through in the LEC to make that point very well known. But unfortunately, you do still have to look inwards and look at that roster and look at the Los Ratones themselves. And that's where I think the first fingers should be pointed as far as the blame.
And obviously the fan base is a fraction the size of LR, but even Shifters, Team Shifters probably has more of a case and should be more upset because they actually have the head-to-head against Fnatic, and it's, again, a strength of win or strength of schedule, victors that they have, a whole lot of different things, but it should have been a mini bracket best of one between these three squads. You have LR Shifters play each other, the winner plays Fnatic. It's only 2 extra games.
And it's not, the worst case scenario of how things could have played out this LEC split, but it certainly is a sour note to go out on as a region, not only with Los Ratones being eliminated in this fashion, but as you laid out, Shifters getting done dirty by this format, by the way the tiebreaker is settled out. This certainly is something that I hope is very much so pushed as a complaint, as a criticism of this format moving forward into a future iteration.
And truthfully, the other main reason that this is even the scenario we're talking about is Team Heretics showing up on the day and getting a win against Fnatic, and Carmine Corp to now have the longest win streak in the league heading into playoffs at 4. Nobody was expecting them to go 2-0 on this final week. Everyone was kind of expecting them to be that 4th team to be eliminated.
A lot of people thought they were dead in the water type of situation, nowhere to move. And this is one of those ones where, yes, there's going to be obviously an outweigh situation where it is far more vocal and disappointed in the Los Ratones and Shifters category than you're looking for people to be super excited and thrilled that Heretics came through and pretty much pulled off the miracle run this week to make it that they are not one of these squads that is saying goodbye to their early season split here in the LEC. Yes, there is 2 sides of that coin always in one of these type of situations. And I think, more than and deserved praise and recognition for the Heretics to make it up. but you can still see where Los Ratones fans, where Shifters fans would be disrupted and upset with the way the format worked itself out.
But how about now, moving forward to these playoffs, you can tell you're heading into a new era of the LEC because your 6, 7, 8 bottom 3 seeds heading into playoffs, Movistar Koi, G2, and Fnatic. We're used to that being the top 3.
And I think this is really going to be where you get it proven for the rest of the year. So early is whether it's going to be this shift of, okay, yeah, the LEC is absolutely shifting around on itself. You're getting swapping around. The power is changing. Or this has simply been that the power teams have had a bit of a struggle out of the gates before they figured themselves out and get operating, running in that prime fashion and start to dominate the region. That is going to be, I think, where we will have sifted out here in these LEC playoffs.
And listen, it's a combination of squads like Na'Vi, Giant X, Vitality, really leveling up and playing at a high level. And I mean, Fnatic doesn't even look like a top 18, and G2 and Koi came down to the very last game of this regular season to even qualify.
And Fnatic maybe a little bit less so, but you certainly know the pieces are there for Movistar Koi, for G2. The way that everything is working, the way that things are being executed on isn't at that level that you know and have established for these players, for this organization. That's where that question can come in when you're looking at those, what we would have thought to be the established power teams within the region. And then in comparison, as you laid out, squads like Giant X, Vitality, Na'Vi, absolutely impressing and beating out expectations early on in this split in the LEC. I think that's really, again, the clash that we're going to see, the two forces throughout these LEC playoffs.
And it's not just the LEC where you're seeing a surprise playoff bracket in terms of who the higher seeds are. Same can be said for the LCS because we were one, maybe even barren steal away from Team Liquid being eliminated. Before even getting to that top 6, they lose a tough series against Team Sentinels and then looked like they were in control against Dignitas in this do or die. Thank goodness we have at least a best of 1 tiebreaker in the LCS, but ends up needing a 43-minute banger with some clean realm warps and core JJ Nico engages, and as I mentioned, a Jose Diodo Baron steal.
Oh man, this was almost red alert alarm levels in the LCS, especially for Team Liquid, but certainly for the whole region when we're looking towards playoffs. And if you did not have a Team Liquid as a representative, as one of these options, whether they're a full contender or not, just being there matters for them within the LCS. So good to see that. I think the viewership will be happy with that one. Maybe not happy with the performance that Team Liquid used to get through to get into this point. Because yes, I think there is absolutely room for that type of criticism, examination as far as the power and competency that we really have seen from these players, from this combination of players on Team Liquid, is going to be something to keep track of moving towards these playoffs, and one where it's going to vary depending on how much you're playing into recency and how much you're playing into what is the established player when you're looking at these series.
Yeah, and the Sentinel series, I mean, Rahel has had 5K gold leads individually. Kaisa was an absolute menace on the weekend as a whole, as she feels like she's very much back into that S+++ tier of 80 carries. But even with, Morgan kind of gapping impact in lane, it just didn't matter. Sentinels were quicker to pull the trigger on. Team fights seemed more coordinated, and more often than not, you saw either Jan, Jose Diodo, somebody kind of on the outside waiting to make their move in a team fight, and team fight's already over, bud.
Yeah, it's very much so that it feels like the individual pieces might be working in, again, maybe not to the full extent or consistency that you want or expect, but you are seeing those signs. You're just never seeing it when all 5 are grouped together. You're not seeing enough of that, mixture working through. It still is kind of bludgeon through, mixing it together type of one. Hitting a couple chunks in the road is the way that batter is coming through for Team Liquid.
And the batter is burnt. for Lyon Gaming. That's, again, another matchup. These are, Lyon was right there, top 3 with Team Liquid that you're expecting in the preseason to be vying, and they drop to DSG. And yes, it was, again, kind of uncoordinated or disjointed out of Lyon, much like Team Liquid in some of these team fights, and Saint was not having a good series for back-to-back weeks, but I'm more giving praise to DSG. Disguised, they lose 3/5 of their roster. 2 Team Sentinels do this full rebuild. We get Kryra making his LCS debut against Inspired of all players, and he looks fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that it is important to recognize this, and because, again, Disguised, it's, this isn't your first rodeo around. The kitty gloves have been off, and the expectations are now there that you start to make progress, start to matter, start to be a factor in things in the LCS. I think that we have seen that so far from this Disguised roster, at least this year around, and very much so in the early stages here of the LCS. You can give that one a pass, and frankly, at the very, maybe it's a small bar to clear, whatever. You can't say that about every single team in the LCS. So that's something for DSG there. Now, looking on the Lyon side, I think this is certainly one of those ones where you can't hit too many speed bumps, even if it is early in the year. This needs to be a consistent ride, and that ride needs to be on the climb and, upturn of the LCS. So that's certainly going to be one of those angles that you have to look at. And unfortunately for them, you can kind of get an extra red circle around Saint in the mid lane off of those performances, as you've talked about, being an area that needs to be course corrected in order for Lyon Gaming to be a team that will matter within these LCS playoffs.
But we're looking at now a lower bracket that has Team Liquid, Lyon Gaming, and we already have Shopify first eliminated with not only not winning a series, they did not win a single game. And this is, again, a squad that Ziny comes in and you're saying, wow, that's a big improvement. This is a top 3 squad. They didn't even get 3 wins.
I think even in the most conservative of expectations as far as how Ziny would integrate within the team, how quickly he would become acclimatized to the LCS and comfortable with the changes, drastic changes in lifestyle moving over, I don't think that anybody would have seen the struggles of the entire roster coming on through in this one. And again, not being able to come through with even a single win on that one, there's certainly going to be some disappointment and maybe even room to retool and tinker on this roster. I don't know exactly the specifics of it, but certainly would be an open door to that outside of, obviously, should still be invested in Ziny in the mid lane. So that's going to be one of those ones you need to keep track of if you're looking on Shopify, but very much so a big red X negative double thumbs down on the start to the year for them.
I mean, it's hard to even fully evaluate this team. They played 6 games. It's like a block of scrims. Like, I feel like they have to just run it back because they haven't seen enough, and that's to their own fault, losing in such dramatic fashion and surprising fashion. The only part of this now playoff bracket that makes sense is Cloud9 versus FlyQuest, as we're immediately going to get a rematch on that one. But this was almost a 2-0 for Cloud9. We now know the experiment of Masu on Sion is maybe not the play, although he looked fine on it, but you just don't want to see him playing Sion is the real truth.
He was fine, sure, but I think it's one of those ones where you kind of got to re-examine, and go, well, we can get a heck of a lot more value from him on something maybe a little more damage, a little bit more orientated in that regard than trying the Sion tricks, which sure did have its own magic and aura within the game. Not enough to truly be the difference in this series, as yes, Cloud9 is the one that steps away as the victors before we get our eventual rematch in the playoffs right away. Very excited about that one because I think there are avenues that you can talk about within FlyQuest's approach to that series that you can retool, rework around, maybe, again, that you would reapproach and have a different angle heading into this one. And then on the Cloud9 side, it still is going to be that top challenge, that real threat of someone that is available and up and rising up. Again, on our expectations on what you think about them in the LCS, FlyQuest is proving that they're more than ready earlier than expected. So you better be ready for them again if you're Cloud9.
Yeah, again, the only squad that's taken a game off of Cloud9, and they've, again, had far and away the hardest schedule of any squad in the LCS, although maybe that's not the case if Team Liquid and Lyon Gaming are sitting there at 1-2, but thank goodness Cloud9 is playing at such a high level right now, and now clearly the best team in the LCS right now, as Blabber continues to be locked in, and Vulcan and Sven, it's looking like it's 2020 out there with the level they're playing.
Oh, this is one of those ones where maybe a kind of polar opposite, I guess, to Shopify Rebellion, where there were these changes in the off season, not as many. Well, probably actually, frankly, more or less the same. But you pretty much hit it right on the head. You hit the nail. You got that first strike right away with this Cloud9 squad. The way that APA has integrated with the team, his attitude, his mentality, the coaching staff changes with I Will Dominate coming on through, I think absolutely is part of that vibe and energy that is carrying on through this Cloud9 organization that is thriving in the early parts of this LCS season.
Just need some level up from the rest of the contenders, because right now FlyQuest is giving it, Cloud9's punching above the weight that we were expecting. Need some other squads to be stepping up, although I am very happy with the Skies. They've looked much better than advertised. Did have elimination action over in the LCK as well, as we're in the play-in stage, and we got a nice showing of play-in stage, kind of like the Kespa Cup, which means we get Kespa Showmaker. I'm talking 25 stacks on your Medjais before 20 minutes into the game.
That's unfair. That is unfair. I'm telling you, professional game or not, I'm out. FF. I'm out of that one at that point. I don't need to experience that on Summoner's Rift in front of everybody at that point, because I know what is capable from someone when they have an advantage in a lead like that. Never mind in the hands of Showmaker. Yes, this is whatever you want to call it, Kespa Cup, early playoff, T1 Genji not here playoff, DK showing up and showing out this weekend. But the problem for DK is, well, T1 and Genji are back this weekend, and they will be around and waiting for them. So that is absolutely going to be where the real test will come through for this DK squad. But throughout this past weekend, with flying colors, they will be passing on through to that stage of the playoffs.
Hanwha Life is watching in despair these last matchups over the weekend. T1 and Genji are eating bowls of ice cream watching these, chuckling, going, this is what's next? Yeah, okay, for sure. But, DRX, credit to them, they did bounce back from getting dismantled by D+, to do some dismantling of their own to Nongshim, who lose to both the DN Supers and then DRX, and I think we're going to be seeing Calyx starting in Split 2. That's my takeaway from the end of these playoff push.
I think that has to be the direction. I will, again, we had a moment, maybe two moments throughout the season that we did say, Scout, here it is, the bounce back, the turn around, this is the point. And then a lot of them were followed up by some duds or lackluster performances. And then this past weekend was certainly pretty ugly from him in regards to everything that came through. And one of those ones where, again, if you're Nongshim, where do you go from here? Do you just settle in and say, yep, this is the roster and this is our limitation and, we can only hope for the miracle or whatever? Or do you make that change with Calyx and try to make a substantial jump up? Try to find that next power level, that next star within the system of growing players in the LCK? I think that has to be the option if you are Nongshim, especially if you, again, take stock around the rest of the squads, the rest of the teams in the LCK, what it takes to start moving up that ladder. I think you got to make some of these hard choices, hard decisions, and unfortunately for Scout, that means that your time is up.
I think most people expecting both KT and Nongshim to be advancing in the next round, and DNS shows up and beats both of them back-to-back to earn their spot in that main playoff round. We learned also in the LPL that, as expected, that group perseverance, the top dogs are at comparable or higher level than the bottom of Group Ascend. Case in point, NIP versus IG, who, a miracle-based defense to save a game, but IG basically got 4-0'd by NIP.
This was ugly. This was, one of those boxing matches where you got to stop it because you go to the defend yourself, man. Come on. What's going on here? IG, yeah, that outside of just one base defense that ends up turning into that type of turnaround. Nothing in this series from that squad. So certainly one of those ones where you're looking with some suspect eyes in the LPL right now.
They're not out. They have another chance against what will, I'll say likely be either LNG or EDG. I don't like them in either of those matchups. Top Esports barely sneaks by, needs a Game 5 against World Elite to qualify for those play-in stage, and I will say we at least got to see some 369 Vladimir. That was fun to see.
That is one of those ones. Not an expected pick either.
First Game 5 of Fearless that we've had.
But absolutely delivering on it and delivering for the Top Esports squad to make it on through. Keeping whatever type of hopes alive at this point. I still think that, again, when you are Top Esports, you're taking whatever you can as, tinkering, working around, tooling type of time this split around. Before split 2 or split 3, when you get Jackie Love back, that has to be where the realize and attention are for this Top Esports squad. But still working out through some of these things. Again, seeing a Game 5 Vladimir come through and perform for 369 are at least things that you can still work on and work up with if you are Top Esports.
And we knew there were a lot more positives over the last couple of weeks that TES were showing as IG was falling off the cliff, and now they're off the cliff. They're in the water. They still got anchors on their ankles, bringing them even lower down. Maybe they can save something against NIP, or not NIP, against EDG or LNG, but I'm not so sure.
I think IG has taken that plunge into the deep end of the pool, and they're, still submerged, and they're going, wait, how deep is this pool? How down are we going down in here, man? I thought this was, only a couple feet. This is the ocean. You're diving down into the trench right now, and it appears bottomless if you are
entering a state of nirvana, and by that I mean group nirvana, C tier, heading in to 2026. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, Stunners. Thanks for hanging out as always. We'll catch you on that flippity flip.